If you want some better performance out of your 2021 or newer 2.7-liter EcoBoost Bronco, this Mishimoto Performance Cold Air Intake with the dry filter is a mod that you'll want to check out. Now, this will be great for the Bronco owner looking to up the capability of their boosted motor, getting some better horsepower and torque numbers, as well as hearing the turbo a bit better if you want a sportier feel when driving. Now, not only will this be great on-road, but if you do go off-roading with your Bronco, this is going to allow you the benefits of a cold air intake with the protection of an airbox, just optimized for the best performance. Again, this will have an airbox style design, offering a lot of protection to the dry filter on the inside with dust reduction features, while also being efficient when it comes to airflow. Now, the housing, the 20% larger tubing, and featured dry filter will all work together to be responsible for that increase, specifically 39.6% less restrictive than stock. This will also feature a clear sight window on top of the airbox for easy maintenance and work with the Mishimoto Performance intercooler piping if you have or are looking to add that to your setup. Breaking the kit down, the airbox and the tubing is going to be made of a roto-molded XLPE construction, which is essentially a super durable and heat-resistant plastic to keep the interior air cool and at optimal temperature. Now, the dry filter will also be a multi-layer washable media that you'll be able to use over and over for an extended lifespan compared to the factory one, which you would need to swap out every 1,000 miles or so. This will also come with high heat-resistant silicone couplers and everything else that you need for a straightforward and bolt-on install. This will come in at about $550 and will be pretty on par for pricing compared to other options available on the page. Now, what I will say about this system is that you're getting a significant increase in flow to trust. You're getting a good system that's going to perform and will have a lifetime warranty to back it up. This is also going to be compatible with additional Mishi mods compared to others that may not be cross-compatible if you're specifically looking at that part. Now, I think if you're in search of a quality dry filter and cold air intake in general that you can count on, then this is going to be a great option to take a look into. Install will be a lighter 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, taking you about an hour to get this all bolted up and snug. Now, at this point, we can head over to our shop and check out a detailed breakdown on how to get this installed onto your Bronco at home. So that's gonna wrap it up for me. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Tools required for this install include remote hose clamp pliers, a ratchet, a clip remover tool, a 15mm wrench, a couple different size extensions, a 2.5 and 3mm Allen wrench, 7 and 8mm sockets, a 10mm swivel socket, and a little pry bar. What's up, guys? Today we're installing an intake on our Bronco, so let's get started. Now, the first thing we're gonna do is remove this push clip that's right above our passenger side headlight. So I've got a clip remover tool. You can get in there and pop that clip out. Next, we can disconnect our IAT sensor as well as pop off these 3 push clips. So we'll start with our clip remover tool. Next, on the back side of our intake box, we have a bolt going into the fender that we can take a 10mm socket to remove. Next, we can come over to our spool valve. We're gonna pull back on the white part of our connector, and then we can push it in to disconnect it. And then we'll take a clip remover tool to pop off these 2 clips. And then we can get that out of the way. And while we're here, we'll take a 7mm socket to loosen up this clamp. Then we can wiggle this hose off our intake box and tuck that down and out of the way for now. Next, we can go to the other side of our hose and disconnect this clamp, same 7mm socket. And then we can wiggle that hose off our intake box and get that out of the way. So now with everything removed from our intake box, we can pull up to release it from the grommets and pull it out of the way. Next, we can come down to the tube going into our turbo. We're gonna grab a clip remover tool to pop this line off of there first. And then once we have that out of the way, there's a bolt that goes into the block over here. It's a 10mm bolt. It's gonna be impossible to see. I've got a 10mm swivel socket on an extension to get down in there. And now once we have those disconnected and our tube is free, we can come down to our clamp here. Now our clamp's at a downward angle, so it's a little bit hard to get any tools in there. So I've got this hose clamp tool. We're gonna get these 2 teeth onto our clamp, and then we have pliers on the other end where we can squeeze this together to tighten it down. So we'll get that lined up. And then we'll give it a squeeze. And then we can start wiggling this to get it out of place. Next, we can work on getting our next tube out. The first thing we're gonna do is pinch on the 2 sides of this connection to pop that off. And then we can start removing all of these 8mm bolts. So grab an 8mm socket, pop these out. Then there's another one right behind this pipe. Next, we can come over towards our battery. We have one more 8mm bolt, as well as the 7mm on this clamp to loosen up our pipe. So we'll grab our 8mm socket for our bolt. And then we'll switch to our 7mm to loosen up the clamp. And then we can slide our pipe out of that little coupler. Now we can loosen up this Y pipe to be able to slide our pipe out. So we'll grab a 7mm socket to loosen up this clamp. And then down at the bottom, we can pull back on this clamp to free that up. Slide that out of our coupler first, and then we can pop that off and slide our pipe out of the way. So now last things we have to do is remove our intake funnel as well as our IAT sensor. So for the intake funnel, we'll just slide that right off. And for our IAT sensor, I'm going to take a 15mm wrench. We'll twist this to the left to get it unlocked, and then we can wiggle it out of place. And then we'll just wiggle that out. So now we're ready to assemble our new intake box. The first thing we're gonna do is install the legs that are gonna go into the grommets at the bottom. We have our long Allen bolts with a lock washer that are going through those and into these threaded holes. And then we have the bracket for the bolt that goes from our intake box into the fender that we'll be using our shorter screws for with lock washer and flat washer. So now we'll grab that little leg with our Allen bolt, slide that through. And then we'll get a 3mm Allen wrench and thread that into place. And then we'll do that same thing for the next one. And then we can rotate this around to the 2 bolt holes back here. And we're going to take our bolt with the lock washer and flat washer and a 2.5mm Allen wrench and thread that into place. Next, we can slide our intake funnel onto our new intake box. Next, we can get our filter assembled and slid into our intake box. So we have this grommet. It's got a smaller diameter side and a larger diameter side. We're going to be taking the pipe coming out of our intake box, and the larger diameter side is going over the edge of that pipe. And then we'll slide that as far as we can. And then we can slide our filter into that other end. Might need to loosen up that clamp a little bit. And we'll take our 8mm socket and tighten down the clamp. And now we can slide that into our intake box, and we just want to get the smaller lip inside. Next, we can slide our IAT sensor into our bung for it, and then twist that to the right to lock that into place. Next, we can install our smaller coupler. Now there's a smaller end and a larger end. The smaller end is going onto the end of the turbo. And then I've got our two small clamps on here. We're not gonna tighten these down yet so that we can still move it around. But we'll get that slid onto our turbo for now, and then we can get our intake box installed. Next, we can get our intake box installed. Our two ends of the pipe are gonna go underneath of this hose. So we'll slide that in first. And then we can angle this down towards the coupler on our turbo and get that slid into place. Next, we can come to that bracket on our fender and reinstall our bolt. And then we'll take our 10mm swivel socket to tighten that down. Next, we can reinstall the push clip on our intake funnel. And then we can grab our two connectors, the first one for the IAT sensor. Click that into place. And then our second one, and we'll push that white tab into place. And then we can just slide these clips over the studs. Next, we can go back to our turbo. We'll take a 7mm socket to tighten down both of these clamps. Next, we can install our pipe running over to the other side. So we're gonna grab our coupler with our two clamps. I'll get that slid onto the outside of our intake box first. And then we can slide this side into our coupler over by the battery. And then we'll get that slid into our coupler on this side. Next, we can get our other pipe back into place. And now we have the two threaded holes in our new pipe that we'll be threading our new bolts into. And then for our next one, we're just going to be using one of our factory bolts for that. Now for our two new bolts included in the kit, we can take a 10mm socket to tighten those down. And then for this middle one, we'll switch to an 8mm socket. And then we'll switch to a 7mm socket and tighten down our two clamps. Next, we can go back to our next coupler and take our 7mm socket to tighten down our two clamps. Then the last thing we have to do is reconnect this line. So we'll just line it up and press down to click it into place. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Mishimoto Performance Cold Air Intake with Dry Filter for your 2021 and newer 2.7 liter EcoBoost Bronco. Thank you for watching, and for all things Bronco, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.